Welcome to Roadmap to Writing. I'm author Jennifer Jenkins. Today's episode is all about how to improve the pacing and increase the tension of your story. Buckle up and let's take a drive. Tension really is the fuel that keeps a story moving. A great author, Lee Childs, he was the author of the Jack Reacher series. He was interviewed for The Opinionator, and as a guest blogger, he was asked the question, how do you create suspense? And his response has never left me. He said, if you are asking how to create suspense, you're asking the wrong question, because that question implies that it's just, a cup of good characterization, a dash of world building, a pinch of foreshadowing, and boom, you have suspense. He said the right question is actually this: how do you keep your family hungry? The answer: you wait 4 hours for dinner. So what he's implying is that we need to understand how to keep our readers hungry. And if we can do that, then suspense and tension, pacing problems, they will all be solved. In this episode, let's examine 4 tactics that you can use to help keep your reader hungry. The first way that you can keep your reader hungry is by being careful about the way you use backstory. What is backstory? Quick review. Backstory is basically everything that's happened to the character up until chapter 1, page 1. The mistake some writers will make is they will include all of this history in this first chapter when the reader doesn't really care enough about the character yet to want to read it. We need to treat the history of our characters like a precious gem, this great secret that we want to hoard and hold on to, and slowly through the course of the story, we're going to give them little nuggets, little quirks in the character, little things that hint and foreshadow it. Something is going on with this character. We want them to be able to get to know the character authentically, just like they would if they met them on the street. So we never would walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, how are you doing? I have a little bit of a reactive attachment disorder, and I got in a fight with my brother yesterday, and I sometimes like to hoard food." And we would never do that, right? And so the character needs to have that same opportunity to slowly unfold their personality to the reader. And major events in backstory, like I said, are precious, and they are tools. They're like a superpower secret that the author is going to use and slowly lead your character to the point where once you do finally give the reveal of all of this backstory or a major event that happened before the book started, the reader is going to be so excited and invested and interested. They're primed and ready to devour that segment. And so it won't feel like it's slowing the story down. It will actually be a payoff that the reader will devour because they're so curious by that point. The second element of building tension or keeping your reader hungry is really in the art of unpredictability. There's lots of ways that an author can be unpredictable for the reader, but before explaining, I want to explain the difference between making your reader curious and making them confused. We never want our readers to be confused. Curiosity, though, is prime. It's ideal. It's exactly what we're going for. It is the thing that gets readers to turn the page. So we can make our stories unpredictable by infusing unpredictable characters. We want them to, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will act out of character, but it does mean that we will establish a stereotype and break that stereotype. So the reader is asking the question, why did they do that? Why do they react that way? Or what is it about this situation that makes them respond the way they do? We want them to break the mold and get the reader asking questions because they are curious. Another way that we as authors can be unpredictable is in using our setting and our world. Unpredictable settings can be a natural disaster or using nature of any kind. Nature is very unpredictable. Magical creatures or elements in fantasy that are unknown or unexplained to the reader. But also, you can use animals of any kind in our world as well. You know, a rattlesnake on the trail is an unpredictable element. Government can be unpredictable. I think of Hunger Games and how the government kind of changed the rules all of the time, and you never knew what President Snow was going to do. Times of war are also a very unpredictable setting. I think of any World War II novel is inherently tense and stressful to me to read because the setting itself is unpredictable. Another way that we can be unpredictable as an author is with our plot. Definitely use plot twists, reveals, red herrings. And if you don't know what a red herring is, it's basically a decoy, some way of leading our reader to one conclusion when actually the truth is over here. And also subtle foreshadowing will make them guess and make predictions, which also lends itself to good tension built from unpredictability. The third way that you as a writer can keep your reader hungry is by changing the momentum and speed of the narration. I'm not just talking about sentence variation, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm talking about distinguishing the difference between building moments and payoff moments. Well, what are they? Building moments are basically anything that is the setup leading up to a payoff. And neither one is more important than the other. An example of a building moment might be learning how to fight, and the payoff being an actual battle. Another example of a building moment might be meeting your true love, maybe going on that first date, building those connections, and a payoff moment might be a kiss or a proposal or something like that. I hope you can see the difference. Once you understand whether you're writing a building moment or a payoff moment, you then can determine the speed at which the narration should flow. So if it's a building moment, lots should be happening and the book should clip along. You should be taking time still to describe setting, to describe character, just good, strong, active writing. But once you get to that payoff moment, you're going to actually change speeds. You're going to pull back the reins on the story, and you're going to have, I call it a matrix moment, where you slow time down and you really get into the detail. If we have a character that's standing on the edge of a cliff and they're getting ready to jump, everything has built up to this moment, and now they're here and their muscles are flexing. We see the extra grip of their toes as they lean forward. We experience the rush of adrenaline that the character is experiencing. We see the swing of the arms, and we marry internal dialogue with great description so that we get a full experience, and that payoff moment means something. If we don't do that, then the writing will feel flat. So if you can master the art of changing speeds in your writing and varying the momentum of the story, then your readers are going to love you for it, because they will forget that they're reading. They'll forget that it's 1 o'clock in the morning and that they should go to bed because they have to wake up for school at 6 a.m. They're going to forget that because they're so excited to get to those payoff moments, because they know you're going to do a fantastic job with them. Now that you understand the difference between a building moment and a payoff moment, let's introduce the fourth way that you can keep your reader hungry as you're writing your novel. Obviously, a building moment is not going to have as much tension as a payoff moment. Even if we are using active language in the writing, it's strong, it's interesting, it's still not going to have as much tension as a payoff moment. The solution that I suggest for that is to have multiple plot lines. And you're probably doing this naturally. Let's use Harry Potter as an example just because it's universal and easy. Harry Potter is our main character, and his character arc might look something like this, right? Well, he's supported by several secondary characters, and we'll just, for right now, use Ron and Hermione as examples. When Harry is building he's at a low moment, tension-wise with his storyline, his plot line, we want to have one of our secondary characters peak while Harry's building. And then they're going to take turns going up and down. I call this tension testing. Every time I write a book, I'll actually use a graph, and I will write tension, mark tension on one side of the graph, and then I'll do it by chapters. So chapter 1, I know what's happening with my characters. Is Harry building? Is Ron building? And is Hermione peaking in chapter 1? Or vice versa? And I always know that I have some payoff moment in every single chapter that I'm writing. This is kind of advanced stuff. And for some people, I know that they get intimidated by this. I like to implement this level of tension in my editorial process, and I'll talk about that in my next episode. But charting and keeping track of when your characters are peaking and when your secondary characters are peaking will help you understand and identify slow points in your story, which is priceless and so valuable when it comes to keeping your pacing strong from the beginning to the end of the story. Remember that Alfred Hitchcock said, "There is no terror in a bang, only in the anticipation of it." Lee Childs was also a great inspiration for this episode. Take his advice, keep your readers hungry, and you can do this by being unpredictable, by hanging on to that backstory and using it effectively throughout your story, by changing up the speeds of your story and the narration, recognizing building moments and payoff moments, as well as using multiple plot lines to make sure that you have peaks in each chapter of your book. If you enjoyed this episode of Roadmap to Writing, please like it and subscribe to my channel so that you can catch future episodes on how to write a novel.